Good evening, and thank you all so much for joining the National Welfare Rights Union for our Take Our Children, Take Our Poverty, Not Our Children at Human Rights Truth Commission. We're going to open up with a song by the Welfare Rights Union. It's a song that was adapted from sorry. It was adapted from an old gospel hymn called We Are Soldiers in the Army. And so I'll start by singing the original version, and then we'll get into the National Welfare Rights Union version of the song. So it starts off with, we are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to cry. We've got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We've got to hold it up until we die. And so the National Welfare Rights Union, while on a tour of welfare rights mothers from across the country, adapted this song to suit our struggle. And they went, we are soldiers in the welfare rights. We have to fight, although we have to cry. We have to hold up the justice banner. We have to hold it up until we die. Well, you know my mother, she is a soldier. She has her hands on the justice plow. And when the day comes and she is older, she said, I'll stand here and fight anyhow. We are soldiers in the welfare rights. We have to fight, although we have to cry. We got to hold on the justice banner. We have to hold it up until we die. We have to hold up the justice banner. We have to hold it up until we die. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sierra. Good evening, and thank you for joining Human Rights Day, Take Our Poverty, Not Our Children. The focus is homelessness, housing rights, and child welfare. This evening's event is sponsored by the National Welfare Rights Union, powered by the General Baker Institute, and our tech host is the People's Forum. Our timekeeper this evening is Maureen Taylor. Interpretation is in Spanish this evening by Kenya and Leonardo. For interpretation, please go to the globe at the bottom of the screen and press it to choose the language. And the graphics are by Monica. My name is Sabina, and I'm your moderator for this evening. The purpose of the Truth Commission is to hear stories of those who are struggling for survival in this country that have been silenced. Many people around the world do not believe that poor people exist in the United States. A Truth Commission is a space where we can tell the truth about what's happening in this country and show that all these human rights violations have one thing in common, that they could have been prevented. It is a space for telling and listening to people's stories in a concrete, organized forum, and a space for analyzing the causes of and solutions for the preventable plights of their lives. It is also a space where we can indict our government for the human rights abuses it is committing against us. At this time, I have the esteemed honor of introducing you to the chair of the National Welfare Rights Union, Marion Kramer, who will go over the mission.
Well, too bad we can't be in the same room together. But it's so good to see some of you older folks, Mary BJ, and some of the young folks. And I'm happy that you are interested in joining this fight. And you know, one thing that we are trying to do is to make sure that the poor and dispossessed have an opportunity to become leaders in this organization and begin to understand that if our children are going to survive, we're going to have to be out there also with them, be we half dead and everything else. We're going to have to be out there to fight. And I said over and over again, to be able to help create a new society for all of us. We don't want no capitalists over our heads. We want to be able to enjoy life and our children be able to grow up and not worry about having food on the table. So that is what we're all about. And we're looking for more and more of you to join the National Welfare Rights Union. Thank you for being here. Let's now educate. It's up to you.
Thank you so much, Marion. I will speak a little bit about how the event will work this evening. Within this tight schedule, we will open up with hearing from the framer and introduce a video that is central to our fight and plight of human rights. We'll then hear from our outreach network, DC, and from there, we will begin to hear 3 to 5 minutes of testimony from our panels of speakers. Maureen Taylor is the timekeeper, and I will introduce her shortly. At 7:50, we will hear poetry interlude, after which we will go into the second panel of testifiers. By 8:25, the commissioners will be introduced and go into a breakout panel, and Larry Bresler will read those names. At 8:30 to 8:45, we will hear from our arts and cultural team and reconvene after the commissioners confer. At 8:54, there will be a closing prayer and final words. So please send your best to all of the testifiers who are giving up their hearts and minds this evening in this critical and important Human Rights Day in our nation's history, that we listen, hear, and take up the continued work to build. Be blessed. Now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Mary Bricker Jenkins to go over the human rights framework.
Thank you, Savina. This is Mary Bricker Jenkins coming to you tonight from Delaware. Today is the International Human Rights Day, the day that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was proclaimed in 1948 to a world that had been ravaged by the Second World War and was desperately needing to affirm our rights and our dignity. It is, according to the United Nations website, a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. It has many provisions, but tonight we are going to focus on one in particular, Article 25, which says, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family. It was written in 1948, so they assumed that his meant us too. We'll correct that. Including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. In other words, every human being has the inherent right to the basic needs for survival. Article 25, Section 2 says motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. And I'll just say, not because we're weak, but because we live in a system that denies us the full benefits of humanity. All children, whether born in and out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. This declaration was later translated into 2 covenants or treaties. One is the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which the United States signed and ratified, made it into a treaty, an enforceable treaty. The second covenant was on economic and social and cultural rights, which the United States signed but has never ratified, meaning that in the United States, it does not have the force of law. Why is that important? Because there are instruments that we could use and that would have to be enforced under our Constitution if we were to ratify the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. States, according to the United Nations, must, quote, respect, protect, and fulfill such rights. So another convention that derived from the Universal Declaration is the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The United States is the only member state in the United Nations that has never ratified that convention. That convention refers to the earlier convention, insisting that all economic, social, and cultural rights in the original declaration must be honored and protected. Not only have we failed to ratify the United States, but the powers that be have used all manner of rhetoric and circumlocution to avoid responsibility of our government to fulfill these rights to the basic human needs of survival, saying that they're only aspirational, that we could just aspire to them but not meet them, that they should be subsumed to under the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, which enshrine the role of private property and private corporations in government affairs. So why bother? Why should we bother with these if they're not worth the paper that they're written on? Because of their moral suasion and because we do have, in fact, these rights that are universally recognized. In 1968, Martin Luther King said, it's time for us to move from civil rights to human rights. The so-called aspirational goals was so powerful that during the Civil Rights Movement, Eleanor Roosevelt, who chaired the committee that wrote the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, told civil rights leaders that it was necessary for them to cool it about economic rights. Our member, our leader, Dottie Stevens, now deceased, of the Massachusetts chapter of the National Welfare Rights Union in the 1980s, saw the organizing potential of these rights. How much time do I have, timekeeper?
Miss Mary?
Yep.
Miss Mary, you have 12 seconds.
Okay, okay. It was Dottie who told us to hold these truth commissions because they are a means of educating and organizing all of us to claim these rights. And we will say here now from our testifiers and from others, the means for doing so. Join us, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are going to kind of go into a 5-minute video. Speaking of the late Dottie Stevens, this video is shot in Massachusetts. It's a 5-minute clip that was edited by Peter Kanoy. This clip is called Roxbury, USA, and it's central to why we're here today. That the poor are organizing the poor around issues of poverty, foster care, the right to fare well, and a place to stay after recovering from substance abuse. It was shot in 1990, and today that ongoing fight is why we are here. So let's view this film, short clip, 5 minutes. Roxbury, USA.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on.
I welcome a revolution. I don't welcome guns, I don't welcome blood, but there's another way to be a revolutionist. You can use it through education. You don't have to use it in force. And that's the way I believe we gotta go. If we work with the grandmothers and senior citizens and down with the children to teach them their pride and who they are. What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now!
Provided we stand, provided we fall. Keep it on the nation, we all stand tall. folks can come out here from the State House and tell you what you had better do, but we got news for them today, is that we're shaping our own agenda. And if they want to hang on to what they got, they better listen to what we have to say, because just like we out here for treatment on demand, we're about demanding everything that we know we need for our own life, for our own family, and for our own community. Treatment on demand. You know, when we have the answer for what every community in this country is going through. But these politicians, they turn around and their answer is prisons. But what we have to say to prisons is treatment. Because the thing that we also understand is that an addict in recovery is an addict who's organizing and who's an addict that has common sense in their head to hold and shape what is needed for their sisters and brothers. Now, we also know that what we're up against is a class issue. It's just like Kitty can jump up and demand treatment and she can get it. What is the difference between Kitty and you? Nothing. Well, there is a difference. Money is the difference. Who you are is the difference. The color of your skin is the difference. Your gender is the difference. Your sexual preference may be the difference. That is what it's all about, is to lock you out of what empowerment and what freedom means.
This rally needs to go on. I mean, through the summer, through the winter, through the fall, through the spring, because we shot drugs through the winter, through the fall, through the spring. We smoked crack through the winter, through the fall, through the spring. We didn't care about our babies then, but we care about them now. We were on a mind and mood altering substance that kept us oppressed, but we are no longer oppressed today. We are fighting for what we believe in today. We're not going to stop here. We're not going to stop now, because we are the people that's suffering, and we have to be the vehicle to change this system and turn it upside down. We have to go on for our babies. We are the mothers that are seeing our babies die from the infant mortality rate. We are the mothers that are seeing our children being born addicted and dying before they even leave our wombs. And we know we're not dumping the drugs here.
You continue to put drug addicts in prison when they have a health problem. How can you build a prison for drug addicts? And the majority of the overcrowded conditions are coming from youths that are committing economic crimes because they're probably addicted from drugs, or they're selling drugs just simply to survive. They won't go after the Ollie North or the Kodak, these big huge corporations that are the drug dealers. But yet and still they're going to do a sweep in Orchard Park. The minute this prison is ready to house people, they're going to do a big sweep, a big raid in Orchard Park and put everybody in this prison. Slave ship. 20th century slave ship. It's a sneaky and cunning thing to have people destroy themselves without you even touching them. And I saw it in the 60s, saw it in the 70s, and I felt it in the 80s, and experienced it and came out of it in the 90s.
There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner, one who would hurt all mankind just to save his soul.
At this time, I'm going to introduce to you Child Welfare, Melanie Webb from Mother Outreach Network in DC. Melanie Webb is a native Washingtonian and the executive director and founder of Mother's Outreach Network, a nonprofit organization that deploys movement lawyers, strategies to mobilize and empower primarily low-income Black mothers in Washington, D.C., to tackle systemic barriers to economic stability for their families. Melanie is a graduate of Harvard Law School and College and Washington, D.C.'s Benjamin Banneker Academic High School. She has spent her career practicing public interest law, and after law school, she clerked for the Honorable Emma G. Sullivan, then on the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. Since then, Melody has focused on legislative and policy advocacy at the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, served as legislative counsel for U.S. Senator Robert Casey, and as Associate General Counsel for Service Employees International. Let me proudly introduce Melody Webb.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, but I'll tell you what I am most proud of. I am most proud and honored to be here, and I'm proud that my work as a lawyer has brought me to this point. Why, as an attorney, am I doing this work? Well, I've done lots of public interest work, but this has been the deepest and most meaningful. My journey in this fight began when I became a parent defender 10 years ago in my own law practice. I would get cases the morning of a probable cause hearing when one of my clients had lost their child maybe a day or two before, and I would get the case notes, and I knew immediately that the deck was stacked against my client from the moment the child was ripped away from that parent. The assault on the parent continued, and I fought valiantly to defend them and to help them recover and reunify with their child, but often it was a lost cause because the parent had lost their child, they had lost their benefits, they had lost their housing. Parents lost an opportunity even to place their child with their preferred caregiver. But in fact, the injustice against the parents had begun long before the court case. We really should be fighting poverty. That is what lands the parents in this circumstance. But we're not fighting poverty. We're fighting families instead. We're surveilling primarily Black, brown, and indigenous families. We punish families and parents for their circumstances, and none of it needs to happen. This is poverty that is driving the child welfare system, the so-called child welfare system. Poverty is conflated with neglect. And here are my observations and ways that we can fight back. And again, I am so honored to be amongst you and amongst the parents who have been impacted and who are working and fighting this system every day. Parents need a right to legal counsel before their children are removed. Our esteemed colleague, the warrior Joyce McMillan, wants us to provide Miranda-type warnings, the state to provide Miranda-type warnings to parents, to require the government to share with parents what their rights are when an agency as soon as they begin the investigation. If the state knocks on your door, you need to have an attorney to advise you of the steps you can take, what your rights are. But too often parents end up signing safety plans, which lead to them losing custody of their children. This whole hidden foster system, which we hear about and which has been written up in the news very recently. And you know, what really has stood out to me in my studies and my representation of parents over these years, in Washington, D.C., 12% of families who are separated by this system, they're experiencing housing insecurity. The percentages are higher in other parts of the country. Well, we have tools to address all of these sources of poverty. For example, the Family Unification Program provides housing choice vouchers for these families who are at risk of involvement with the system or who are seeking to reunify. And how often are parents given those vouchers? These tools are underused. We also now have the child tax credit that is fully refundable in this current year, but yet in Washington, D.C., over half the families who were eligible did not access the child tax credit. We could have done more as a community and as the government. We need to get rid of the Adoption Safe Families Act, linking rights to your child to a ticking clock with an arbitrary cutoff point, that's inhumane. We should eliminate the failure to protect as a basis for child removal. A mother fighting for her life from an abuser then has to turn around and fight to keep her children. These and many other things we need to fight in support of our mothers, our fellow mamas fighting to keep their children. I am committed and I look forward to working with all of you in supporting mothers and caregivers in fighting this inhumane system.
Thank you, Melody. Now we're going to move into the first set of testimonies. And I'll introduce Maureen Taylor, who will give, the instructions, brief instructions. We're at 7:29. Maureen Taylor.
I will ask all of the testifiers if you are able to look at the chat. So when it's a minute left for your comments, I will write something. If you're not able to see the chat, when it is a minute left, I will come off of mute and I will very softly and respectfully say to you, you have 60 seconds left. That's the only instructions I'm able to give. Thank you, Ms. Savina.
You're welcome. So after this next video entitled Give Us Back Our Children, we'll hear from Crystal Sanchez, the Sacramento Union of the Homeless in California, Janina Gorman, Put People First, Pennsylvania, and Madison Williams, Alexandria House, California. Let's roll the video.
Provide resources and in-home services first. Don't take children because we're poor. Stop fast-track adoption. Stop detaining children due to domestic violence. Hospitals, stop drug testing low-income mothers and newborns.
My name is Lenora Brown L. And recently in June of 2021, I made the error of leaving my son in the car when I ran into the store. He wasn't harmed, but someone called the police. They took my son away from me. They threw me in jail. They took my son away for 2 months. I found out through that process and by this initiative that they have a legal right to be able to take children who are under the age of 2 and adopt them out without the parents' consent. When I found that out, I didn't have him back yet, and I was terrified, I was horrified, it was this treacherous situation because I didn't know what to do. So it made me fight harder, but I definitely want to speak for mothers like myself and for the mothers who have lost their children to this terrible law that allows that. Mothers should be given more love and empathy and respect and should definitely have say-so before adopting your children out in any circumstance. And I wanted to speak for them and against that that terrible law. DCFS, give us our children back.
In December 2012, I asked my oldest daughter's paternal grandparents if they would babysit, and they agreed, and they were supposed to only keep her overnight. And instead of bringing her back to me, I was given a white envelope that had a pending-like custody order in it. And then a few days later, when I showed up in court, I found out that they had filed for emergency custody, stating that I left my daughter on their doorstep and they didn't know how to get in touch with me or where to find me. After that, the judge gave them full custody with no way of getting my daughter back, because he felt more comfortable with her being in a 2-parent home than with a single parent who didn't have a real job. And at that time, I was a waitress. It took me 9 years to get her back.
I do believe that not all cases should be the way they are treated, especially when certain parents go through the first domestic violence, which is in my case, where things are being used against us that are not true, and there's no way we could validate that or prove our point because the CFS doesn't listen to you. Not only that, they don't help you. They really don't help you at all. It's really you're on your own in this world with DCFS. It's very stressful, very frustrating. And at the end of the day, they don't know what they're doing to those families. I speak for myself personally. I believe my son is going through something that he shouldn't be going through just because he's always been with me. I always been with him. His dad's always been there for him, but he's not the perfect dad. We're not the perfect parents, but we always have taken care of our kid. And I strongly believe that DCFS should consider the fact that when it's your first domestic violence ever after so many years dating with this partner, like in my case, been 17 years, they shouldn't be removing the kids because not only they separate families, but it's like we go through a trauma because we don't know when we're going to see each other again. We don't know when we're going to speak to each other again. And our kids are left behind, like wondering what happened or wondering if they did something wrong when it's not the case. It's just how DCFS takes it and how our voices are not being heard.
In 2016, I gave birth to a beautiful little girl. Problem is, I didn't leave the hospital with her. The hospital drug tested my child and I without my consent and called Children's Services. I still remember laying in the hospital bed holding her when they walked in to take her from me and put her in the nursery to tell me that I could no longer be alone with her anymore and that they were taking her into their custody.
Oh my God.
I still remember the pain I felt leaving that hospital alone, not knowing where to go or who to turn to for help. Family separation has been something that America not only has profited from throughout the years, but something that plays a major part in parents and family members experiencing loss, even though the child is still alive. My daughter is now 5 years old. I have not seen her since she was 3 months old. During my time of incarceration, she was adopted out without my consent and without my knowledge. I was only incarcerated for 6 months, and it took them 3 months to set the plan for adoption and finalize it. We all know that it takes longer for a parent to be sentenced to jail or prison time than that. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my daughter, but what really hurts the most is not even having the chance to see her or even know that she's okay. I sit and I dream about what she might look like. Does she look like me? Does she look like my other daughter? If only I could just have a picture just to see how she's doing would make all the difference. I think it's important for the social workers to know the trauma of the separation impacts the children, the parents, and the entire family units. No one in my family has ever had the chance to see my daughter, not my mother, not her brothers or her sister. And it's hard to explain to my kids where their sister is. You know, they remember me being pregnant with her, but they've never had the chance to see her. The child welfare system took advantage of my situation of homelessness and substance abuse issues and used that to keep me from my child. Numerous times I went into child services agency only to be turned away and told to leave my name and number and someone will get back to me. No one ever did. I have filed many petitions with the courts only to continuously be denied. But as painful as it is, as painful as the situation is, I know that God works all things out for the good. I have been able to turn my whole life around and have stepped into my purpose because of this situation. I now am aspiring to become a dependency lawyer so that I can help parents who have unjustly had their children taken away by child welfare system. It's almost impossible to navigate the child welfare system alone. During that time, I didn't have not one single person to tell me what my rights were or to help me fight back. That's why it's so important that the community comes together to help families fight this racist system that was just designed to disproportionately tear apart Black and brown families.
Thank you. Right now, before Crystal Sanchez comes up, let's turn it over to Larry Bresler. Larry?
Hi, my name is Larry Bresler. I'm from Cleveland. Briefly, before we go into the continuing testimonies, as we're hearing all the testimonies today, it's not just all of us that are hearing it from all over and taking them in. There's something methodical that's going to be done with them. These testimonies are being given in front of an esteemed group of commissioners with great experience who are going to be listening to them intently. And what they're going to be doing is, as they're looking at them, they're going to be asking themselves, as people, are these economic human rights violations in terms of what they're hearing and thinking of each of them individually? Could these violations have been prevented? Who is responsible? And what are the solutions to these economic rights violations? And after we get done hearing the testimonies, the commissioners are going to meet, confer briefly, and come out with a brief statement. But then afterwards, they're going to come up with a full report that addresses those 4 questions. And as I mentioned, we have some really terrific, esteemed people who are wonderful people who are going to be serving as commissioners today. And just briefly, if I can go through them, the chair of this commission is Ciara Taylor, who you all heard at the beginning singing "We Are the Soldiers" in the Welfare Rights. She is also an educator and cultural organizer with the University of Poor, the National Union of the Homeless, and the Poor People's Campaign, and is very much active with the National Welfare Rights Union. Another one of the commissioners is Brianna Parker, who's a member of Michigan Welfare Rights Union. She focuses on working in the coalition to make energy and water affordable and clean. An alternative commissioner is Brian Mallory, who's one of the tri-chair of the Ohio Poor People's Campaign. He also works and he's been homeless multiple times himself and now lives in public housing. He's a community organizer with Organize Ohio, is volunteer with the Cuyahoga County Jail Coalition and Poverty Now Coalition, and a variety of other grassroots organizations. Christopher Spicer Hankel is a stay-at-home dad and a storyteller for peace and justice. He's the chair of the Somerville, Massachusetts Human Rights Commission, a member of Peace Action Nuclear Disarmament Working Group, Witness Against Torture, and the Pastoral Council member of the Paulus Center of Boston. Mary Lux, also an alternate, was homeless as a youth and a scholarship student. Now Dr. Lux, who's a former Grateful Welfare recipient, is Professor Emeritus pro bono epidemiologist, grandmother, and active member with the National Welfare Rights Union and the National Union of the Homeless. Michelle Tingling Clemens is an environmental, anti-hunger, and public health organizer in Washington, D.C. She's a founding member of National Welfare Rights Union, co-convener of the Gray Panthers in Metropolitan Washington. Rick Tingling Clemens is a USAF veteran, a husband and father of 8, founding member of National Welfare Rights Union and business manager for the Gray Panthers of Metropolitan Washington. Paul Bolden was unhoused during his teens and early 20s. Squatting and homelessness, he brought a commitment to fighting for all forms of racism, classism, ableism, neoliberalism as a key to liberation from oppression. Since 1983, he's been grounded in his life work of the unhoused community members to facilitating fighting alongside community members, serving currently as executive director for the Western Regional Advocacy Project, a coalition that works to expose the root causes of human rights abuses for homeless and those who are poor. Rob Robinson is a formerly homeless housing organizer based in New York City. He works with alliances and coalitions in New York City, across the US and internationally. He's currently an adjunct professor of urbanism at the New School in New York City. Reverend Tony Algood was born and raised in Mississippi, moving to Alabama in 1974 to work in organizing in the shipyard. He later organized across racial lines among pulpwood haulers and poultry workers and homeless workers. He's currently a full-time pastor for the United Methodist Inner-City Mission, and is on the executive board of the National Union of the Homeless. Willie Baptist is formerly homeless, father of 3, who came out of Watts Uprising as a Black student movement. He is currently the co-coordinator of the Poverty Scholarship and Leadership Development at the Cairo Center, and on the boards of the National Union of Homeless and National Welfare Rights Union. Have a terrific group of
Thank you so much, Larry. We have a mom that's testifying that has to get back to her
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Janina Gorman, please.
Okay, would you like me to go first then? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Janina Gorman. I currently live in a small rural city in Blair County, Pennsylvania, and I'm a member of Put People First Pennsylvania and the PA Poor People's Campaign. And I work with Every Mother is a Working Mother Network and Global Men's Strike. You may not know it by looking at me, but I am a quarter Iroquois and half Irish. And in 2013, I was a single mother with 5 small children, 12 and under, 2 of my daughters were on the autism spectrum and needed additional care. As a woman who fled domestic violence, my ex withheld support as a means of punishment, which forced us into low-income housing. I was doing everything I and the landlord terminator, so I had to pay weekly out of pocket. Due to my housing situation in August of 2013, my children were suddenly removed from my care. CYOS informed me that if I signed over temporary guardianship to a relative and completed the treatment plan, my children should be returned to me within 3 weeks before school started. It has now been 8 years, in which time I have successfully completed 6 treatment plans, and still my fight continues. It has been a huge fight, but since 2019, 3 of my children have now been returned home. The battle continues for us. All 3 are now actively being treated for physical abuse, sexual abuse, and PTSD, when none of them had any markers for any physical or sexual abuse when they were in my care. We have been given little to no financial support when foster families here are given nearly $3,000 per month per child. I work very hard to advocate for my children's mental health needs and IEP services every day, but in so many ways, I feel that the services offered are setting us up to fail, rather than providing the help and support we need. One big lifeline for me has been the child tax credit. This country has a long and ugly history of forcibly separating Native families In fact, I am the first generation who were not physically removed and taken to a residential school like the one my grandmother was forced into in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It is widely understood that these institutions and laws were a foundation for what is now known today as the child welfare system. Continuing
Ms.
the
Gorman?
legacy. Yes.
Ms. Gorman, you have 45 seconds.
Oh my goodness, continuing the legacy of forced removals and family separation, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, which is under attack currently. We are seeing the continuation of this brutal legacy today. When I was
Janina, you're muted.
it is harder to live and live for them and fight for them. That is how I survived. Why we're here today and why I've had the victories is because we all came together and we fought so hard for them. When we come together and fight, we win, and we can win. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Crystal Sanchez from the Sacramento Union of the Homeless, California.
Hi there. I'm here today to say, take our poverty, not our children. My name is Crystal Sanchez, and I am the president of the Sacramento Homeless Union and the Western Regional Director for the National Union of the Homeless. And I come to you today as an adult who was a child of this broken system, but that's not why I'm here to talk. I'm here today to talk about what's happening in the 5th largest economy of the world, which is California. I'm going to explain to you guys what we are seeing in the encampments, because I think that is important. We currently have a membership of over 25 unhoused individuals here in Sacramento and a network of mutual aid of over 500 community members. So what we're seeing, I have personally been involved in delivering babies in the back of vehicles to keep them undocumented. We have to do this because CPS comes and takes unhoused children. What we are seeing is that children are in these encampments. So right now, currently we have 11,000 people in Sacramento who are unhoused. 700 of those are children. We lack 63,000 units of affordable housing. And so we don't have the housing to place people. We don't have shelter. We don't have the resources that folks need. So what is happening is we are seeing law enforcement coming into our encampments and they are sweeping our unhoused individuals. With this being said, law enforcement is befriending families with children. They come in with social workers and then they come remove these children. Now there's a law in California that states that they may not take children for the fact that they are living in a tent. However, they are taking these children based on other things, including what they are calling child endangerment, which is children being in these encampments around people who may be registered, needles, things that necessarily you cannot prevent. So what's it like to grow up in an encampment? The children that we have out in the encampments, it's really, really hard. Parents have to keep them in their RVs or in their tents. And what we again are seeing is these massive sweeps where they are taking all of their shelters. A lot of our kids do not go to school due to the fact that parents are afraid that CPS is going to intervene and take those children from the schools. Something else that we are seeing in these encampments, I work with a lot of families who are trying to get their children back. They have to jump through these massive hoops that are nearly impossible for somebody who is unhoused to jump through. When they do receive judgments for children to be returned, we are having CPS actually calling us, an on the ground advocacy group, asking us for housing. We do not have housing. And again, these are systemic issues that we are seeing, children being removed based on the inequities that our city and county have put in place. We're seeing kids being taken from these encampments and placed in foster care. I'm an ex-foster care group home youth. And so this system, we all know is really, really rough. They are fast tracking adoptions. Again, people cannot jump through these hoops quick enough, and then they are adopting these children out. We are also seeing women getting pregnant in these encampments, and there's been multiple deaths, including stillborn deaths, in which women are giving birth to stillborn babies. And then recently on the news, there was an article where somebody had made a burial. This is very dangerous. We have women, again, giving birth on the streets because they fear those children are going to be taken away. And so again, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. There's absolutely no reason that we should be going through this. And they're just profiting off our pain. And I think that's all I got. I'll pass my time to the next person.
Thank you, Crystal. We're going to hear from Madison Williams, Alexandria House, California. Madison Williams.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was unmuted. I've experienced DCFS on both sides. As a youth, I had many social workers in and out of the household after my father passed at 9 years old. I was abused, and many reports were made over the years. And it wasn't until I was 12 years old that I was placed with my uncle and aunt. And back in those days, DCFS did not intervene anymore if you were placed with a family member. At 16, I ended up living with my mother, and it was not a good situation. She was on drugs. I ended up in a shelter/group home. The social worker did not want to open a case, stating that I was almost of age. I was 17, and I was going to age out soon. So she kind of just left me. The shelter ended up keeping me longer than the DCFS would let them. It's against the rules to keep anybody who is not part of DCFS longer than 30 days. And they kept me for a little bit longer. When I was 18, I didn't have any services. I didn't have family. I didn't have anything. I was homeless. Most people still receive extra care after 18 to help them. And I was not eligible since that social worker would not open that DCFS case. So that was my experience with DCFS on that side. I also was 19 and ended up with a kid and homeless. But later in life, I became a foster mom. And so I had contact again with DCFS. Crazy, but I had a great social worker in the beginning. She understood my uncomfortability on monitoring visits. She did not push adoption. She didn't do any of those things. So sorry. But then she went on maternity leave. So then I got a really bad social worker. My foster daughter was in extracurricular activities, dance, cheerleading, and at a private school. This other social worker did not care. She took her out of school. She missed so much school, the school almost kicked her out. She was pushing adoption and also making me do visits with the parents who were rightfully agitated with me and still using. So there are many false accusations. I ended up having to give my foster daughter up. But because of the false accusations, ever since then, somehow I've been having more and more false accusations. In the last 2 years, I've been investigated 6 times. Now, trying to help somebody, I'm now in a target. Well, I had, and that was just that one incident. Now, while I've had a good experience with that one first social worker, when I was a foster parent, I've learned that definitely isn't the experience that other people are having on the other side. I also learned that the community support that I was given, partnering with Alexandria House and being part of that community is what helped me possibly keep my kids with all of these false accusations. The support that they were able to give me actually made a really big difference. And I believe that community, anybody's community, if you have support, that
Madison may have to shut down her camera. Let's hope she gets back on.
That helps.
Madison, you may have to get off camera. You may have to get off camera. Thank you. Oh.
And Miss Madison, you only have about 30 seconds left.
You're muted. Oh my goodness.
Oh, did you hear? Did you guys hear me? I didn't. Hello?
That's fine. You can.
Yes,
you can
we heard everything. You have 20 seconds. I think you have 20 seconds left now.
I think Madison finished her testimony.
Miss Madison? I think
Yes, I finished it. I'm so sorry. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Madison. At this time, we have completed the first set of testimonies, and we want to turn it over to Sabrine Adiba, who will grace us with a poetry interlude. Sabrine. Sabrine, you have to unmute. Thank you.
There. Sorry about that. Me and this mute. Okay. The title of this poem is A Fostered System. Okay. Foster homes, I am aware, are not a place to be. Dark, angry house where children cry, plus find it hard to sleep. Beneath my bed, filling my world with dread, lurking in closets behind closed doors, fear echoes inside my head. Dark, ugly secrets I am not allowed to share. I shut my mouth like I'm told and pretend I am not there. Must be a better place besides a fostered system. When I grow up, reform shall be my mission. Thank you.
Ashe. At this time, we're going to be moving into our second set of testimonies. And I will call out the names. Chandra Delaney, Texas Human Rights Coalition and Women of Color Global Women's Strike. Vanessa Noisy from the Apache Stronghold, and I think we're going to view her video. Maricela Ramos, Alexandria House, California. Maria Rivera, Union de Vecinos, California, and Janie Johnston of Brooklyn. Chandra.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Chandra Delaney. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I'm a social justice advocate. My work involves fighting for human rights for prisoners and working with families of prisoners. I am the caregiver in my family. Being the oldest, I care for my mother, I care for my siblings and their children, my grandchildren, and my siblings' grandchildren. I'm currently and have been in the past a kinship caregiver for other family members impacted by the removal of their children. I am the buffer between my family being placed with strangers or in a group home. My experience with the foster care system has been in Pennsylvania, Louisiana, and Texas. In all of these states, the system is overwhelmed and overloaded with children who could be in their homes if provided resources and support instead of separation and instability. Just like the criminal justice system, the family court system is not working for the benefit of Black, Indigenous people of color or the poor. Just like the criminal justice system, judges, supervisors, and other officers of the court abuse their power to place children in so-called better situations only to impact those children in ways that they will live with forever. Those of us who do prison work recognize the family court system as a major contributor to the prison pipeline. Through my contact with prisoners, I found that a large number of them have been in the foster care system, separated from their families for reasons stemming from poverty. 2.5% of youth placed in group homes end up in the justice system, while 90% of those who have been in 5 or more placements will end up in the system. Women, as you heard in the film, are the fastest growing population of the incarcerated, and in some cases, the court system works with the family courts to fast track these children into captivity as well. Women are losing their parental rights, and there is no reunification with their children once they are released. As a prison abolitionist, I liken prisons to slavery, and there's no difference than in those times when families were forcefully separated. I've heard horror stories, and I have my own stories. In Lake Charles, Louisiana, my 3 grandchildren, 1 a newborn, were all separated. The CYS told me the children were in placement, but I didn't need to come for court. That didn't sit well, so I flew to Louisiana with proof that I was a kinship caregiver, and the judge released them to me. Had I not shown up, the families were not under the impression that the children would be theirs. Here in Texas, I was urged to get here by the next morning to save the children from placement via a Zoom hearing at 7 p.m. At 6 a.m., I was on a flight and at court by 9 a.m. After all that, they still tried to keep the children from me, but the judge ordered them to release them to me. Although I had a few positive experiences with judges, that is very rare. In PA, I was involved in a case where a judge abused her powers and ordered the children to remain in my care even after the case was closed. That same judge threw a mother in jail for removing her son from an abusive father that the judge had placed him with because he had more money. Currently, I have not received compensation or reimbursement from CYS here in Houston. For a year, I have maintained my home in Pennsylvania and some of my grandchildren's expenses here. And at one point, we were facing eviction and I could have lost the children. Fortunately, community members pulled together a fundraiser that kept us housed until we got rent assistance. I've received some assistance from the kids' parents, both unemployed during the pandemic. And my son actually had to buy insurance and pay the deductible for the treatment the mother was ordered to get that the CYS refused to pay for.
Ms. Chandra?
Yes.
I tried to give you 45 minutes, but everybody corrected me. So you have 45 seconds left.
Okay, well, I was almost done. The common factor is poverty. The family courts consistently use poverty to remove children from their home, causing undue harm on families and communities. Why not give the family resources to make the home stable instead of paying to put children in other people's homes and facilities? In closing, I would like to say I'm thankful to be a caregiver because our job is important to the unity of families. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we're going to view Vanessa Noisey's words, and she is from the Apache Stronghold.
Dagote shi Vanessa Noisey Gonseshi, San Carlos Gonliu, shi Chokao Ine. Ahea. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Vanessa Noisey. I'm an enrolled member of the San Carlos Apache tribe, and I'm Chiricahua Apache. Today, I talk to you about the worries of a mother, an Apache mother. I have 4 beautiful, amazing daughters that's at risk. And why I say they're at risk is because a foreign mining company called Resolution Copper is wanting to destroy our holy and sacred site, Chichilpa Tagotil Oak Flat. With that being said, that means that my religion and my way of life is at risk. The teachings that were given to me by my ancestors that have been passed down from generations to generation will no longer exist if Chichibistagotil Oak Flat is destroyed. That means that my kids and those yet to be born will not have a future. Not only is our future of Mother Earth, Nagosan, is being destroyed and will... I apologize because I get emotional. But what I'm trying to say is that Mother Earth is at stake. And if we continue to rip the natural resources that were provided to give us shelter, to give us water, to give us food, is at risk of being destroyed all over this country, then our future generations do not have a sustainable world to live in. Along with the environment being at stake and being at risk for complete destruction, as indigenous people, as an Apache, that means our religion and our way of life and our identity is at risk. It's a constant, continued fight that we have been battling with the U.S. government for centuries. And it's still living today. My kids will either take up the fight and be Apache and be able to have the freedom to pray at our holy places, to feel the spirit that's alive, that we believe in, or will they only fantasize of what it is to be Apache? That's what's at stake for my people, a complete genocide of who we are that was given to us by Creator. But remember, if my way of life is at stake, my religion is at stake, so is everyone else's. They have been doing this to us for over 500 years. But we are making a stand. I am making a stand. And I ask those that are in power, those that have the ability to make change in this world, to do so. Because I'm fighting not only for my children, but I'm fighting for yours and those yet to be born. No one will be able to live in this world without clean air, clean water. And if my religion is at stake, so is yours. We as indigenous people look 7 generations ahead. And right now, we are not going down the right road. There will be no world for our children to live in. So I'm not just looking and talking on the indigenous point of view, but I'm looking as a mother. Mother Earth is hurting. Mother Earth is sick. And if we continue to rip her apart, our future children will have no existence. And if my religion is always being attacked and has complete genocide, then what does that leave for my people? When we talk about fighting for our sacred sites throughout Indian country, we're fighting for those yet to be born. We need the system to change. We need actual people to make moral decision and support the people, because we all are fighting against a system that wasn't meant for us. So please, let's make change. Let's give our future children opportunities to survive. Don't kill the spirit that was given by Creator. Everything is alive. We breathe and we see beautiful creations, but we are taking it for granted. And we are witnessing a murder on Mother Earth. So let's not add to the problem. We need you to fix it so that our future generations can survive. Ahia.
Amen. Now we are going to hear from Maricela Ramos, Alexandria House, California.
Can you guys hear me? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. So, hi, my name is Maricela Ramos. I entered the foster care system when I was a preteen. I was physically abused by my father. Being taken away from my parents was one of the traumatizing moments in my life. I was placed into a group home where I suffered depression from the mental abuse I was experiencing. I never felt safe, and I never felt that my voice mattered. I was later adopted by a wonderful lady who taught me about love and compassion. I was emancipated at the age of 18 without knowing all the benefits of staying in the system. I fell in love and I had kids at a young age. Going to college seemed impossible for me. I added and dropped classes all the time because I felt keeping a roof over my head for my kids was more important. My foster parent passed away when I was 23. I didn't have any additional support. I became homeless. I was couch surfing, sleeping in the car, getting hotel vouchers from the county. And those hotel vouchers are limited. They only give it to you for like 14 days. I found out about 211 only to be thrown into a circle that led me into a dead end. I had to do my own research and go to these shelters directly. Alexandra was able to open their doors for me and my kids. I was able to have a structure so I can go back to school and get a part-time job. I got the support that I needed. I got therapy for me and my kids. And I also found out about the Guardian Scholars Program through another nonprofit organization. I feel that we need more organizations like Alexandra House that have an open community where you feel safe. The community helped me realize that there is good people out there. Even if you feel the system has failed you, there is a light of hope that I am worthy of having a place on this earth. So I guess I didn't know how much time I was gonna have to speaking, but I wanted to say that being in the foster care system was never easy, and I think that when you're in a system, you always want to run away. And you think you can just figure it out on your own, but then you realize that you just hit a dead end. So it takes a lot to put your pride aside and ask for help. And I think the barriers that I had is that those resources weren't available to me. They weren't given to me. So the deck of cards was always put against, at least for me, I felt like they were always against me. And I don't want the next generation to struggle and suffer. So that is why I feel like it's important to talk about these issues that are going on in the foster care system.
Thank you so much, Maricela. We appreciate your story. Next up is Janie Johnston, LCSW, Brooklyn, New York. Oh, wait a minute. I think it's Maria Rivera. Sorry about that. Maria Rivera, you're up next. Thank you. Maria Rivera of Union de Vecinos in California. Okay, while we're waiting for her, perhaps we can just move on to Janie Johnston of Brooklyn, New York, and we'll get back to Maria Rivera shortly. Janie?
Hello?
Okay.
Savina, I see Maria on screen.
I can see her now. Thank you, Maria. Maria, can you unmute? And are our interpreters on board? Thank you.
Sí, ya. ¿Ya puedo hablar? Ok. Sí.
My name is Maria del Carmen Rivera. I belong to the Esperanza Committee of Unión de Vecinos. I want to talk a little bit about what was happening with the tenants. The tenants right now are suffering harassment from the landlords because the landlords want them to pay rent. And now they're not able to pay their rent. So the landlords, what they're doing is they're sending 3-day notices. If you don't pay the rent, they tell you they're gonna kick you out. I'm one of those people. Right now, I received the rent program, and the same thing happened to me. This had never happened to me with my landlord. I had already talked to him, telling him that I was not able to pay the rent right now because my son barely died just recently. I had never been behind with my rent before. So I told him, so that's why we applied for the system, because I don't have for the rent. I'm a single mother. The only thing I have is the help that I receive from my vending. I sell things and then I put money together. He gave me a 3-day notice and told me that he didn't pay, I would have to get out. The same situation is happening to many people. Many people cannot wait. They leave their homes and leave their apartments because they're afraid, because they're being threatened that they're going to be kicked out, that the immigration is going to be sent after them. And with all those things, they intimidate tenants. But when I see a person in this situation, I let them know that we have meetings on Mondays, and if they can come with us, we'll be able to tell them and answer and support them. So many people do not believe, and they're afraid, and they leave their homes and they end up without their apartments, outside of the apartments. That's why we see many people on the streets. That's why you can see many people on the streets because they're not able to have paid the rent. So right now, the situation that is happening, this is the situation that is happening because for a long time, they've been trying to get rid of people. They've been trying to push people out. People have applied to receive rent support and all of those things. So it's a large suffering that is going on, that we see that people are crying with their children because they don't have a place to live. Many people are saying we should go back to Mexico, I go back to my country because we're not able to. Because we cannot stay here. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay the rent if we cannot work? So there's many landlords, very cruel, that don't touch their hearts. They go, lock people out, so they cannot go back, get back in. And I don't think I don't know why they're like that. Maybe they've never gone through this situation and that's why they don't care. That's why they don't care that people go into the streets, because that's what they're doing. And I think that's what they're gonna keep doing, because people are afraid. People are not looking for support because they're afraid, because they're being threatened and all of those things. But myself, thank God, I've been able to arrange this situation. Unión de Vecinos, where we are, they're helping me, and I thank God for that. But the people who are not informed and they're just take off, these are people who are poor and have lost their homes. They're sleeping on the streets. They're trying to figure out what to do. This is not fair, because they should be touching their hearts and they should know that people are suffering. and understand that people are not able to pay the rent. This is not just here. This is happening in many places, not just here. I'm here in Boyle Heights, but in many places this is happening. They're displacing people. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye, Maria. Bye-bye. Peace and blessings to you.
Bye, gracias. ¿Está bien?
Yes.
¿Ah?
Oof.
Ok, pues, bye, bye.
Bye-bye.
Ok, pues, bye. ¿Ya terminó la junta?
Janie Johnston, LCSW, Brooklyn, New York.
En mudo. Déjeme decirle a las niñas. Mami, ¿me puede poner en mudo mi teléfono?
Thank you.
I've become the matriarch. And so in that, I've taken on the responsibility of making sure that all of my children, anyway, are okay and understand what they need to do, including other people, with my family and other people. So I'm here to tell my story about my granddaughter who had tried to get benefits in South Carolina where she was living soon after she had a baby. She was pregnant and she was able to get Medicaid, and she had some issues with the delivery. She had to go back into the hospital because she developed an infection. And when she came out, I think it was about 2 days after she came out of the hospital, she applied for WIC because she needed the milk for the baby. And so she applied on the phone. They told her that they would send her the papers to fill out. She had to sign them and send them back. They sent her the papers. There was a deadline. And by the time she received the papers, the deadline was over. She called back a second time. The second set came after the deadline again. So we're not sure if it was the mail or if it just was, you know, the way they work down in South Carolina. So she said she was going to try one more time. And she called up and she requested the papers. And again, they came after the deadline. She didn't have the money to buy milk and diapers and everything for the baby. This also affected her mental health because she, you know, after she had the baby, her first priority was her son. And when you can't provide for your children, it really, you know, interferes with everything in your life. It makes it very hard to go from day to day. We all talked about it. We were on the phone all day long, and we got through it. And that's what I think is needed, just being able to surround yourself with people who are facing sometimes similar situations, or just talking to each other. You know, you have to let it out. And that's what I tell everyone. When you keep it in, it festers and it grows, and it's not a good thing. My granddaughter started this process when the baby was 2 weeks old. The baby is now 9 months old, and that's when she decided she was going to come to New York. She came to my house and she stayed with me for a couple of days. We told her what she needed to do. She applied online for her benefits, which was public assistance with cash, WIC, and SNAP. This was on Monday. On Tuesday, she received her benefits. She received, I think it was $120 for her and the baby in cash, $400 in food stamps and WIC. She had no help in South Carolina. So, you know, with my help and my daughter's help, she was able to navigate the system, and it worked out well for her. I mean, within a couple of days, she was able to start taking care of herself, which is what she wanted to do. And this is what everyone needs, but it's really hard for them to do that because they don't have the money or the knowledge and knowledge in terms of what resources are available to them. the system has changed over the years. It's not like it used to be. Not like when their mothers or grandmothers were on public assistance. It's very different today. So you have to know how to navigate it, or you're homeless or you have no food. Even as a social worker, I've had so many clients who lived on the subway for days before someone was able to help them. I had a whole family that was living in the subway. The mother had passed away, the father had 5 children, and they were riding the subway until someone asked why weren't the kids going to school, and the kids were actually put in foster care because he couldn't care for them. And I mean, it was sad. Instead of giving him help, he took his kids away. But you know, this is what the system does to some families. And you have people who are just trying to get food, you know, trying to stay dry, you know, trying to keep that roof over their head. Those are the basics. That's what they need. We're not even talking about the extras, but just the basics. We have to find a way. We have to find a way, just like we do with everything else. You know, we find a way to get the money, and we take care of the people within our country, you know, and then it just spreads, you know. But we have to find a way to get the money, whichever way whatever we have to do. If we have to pay more taxes, then we have to pay more taxes. I mean, but I think if we all work together, we'll get the money somehow. There's no one else to do it. We have to do it.
Thank you, Janie. And thank you to all of our testifiers, all of the powerful stories that we heard today. This concludes the first part of our panel discussion with the testifiers. At this time, we're going to move to Larry Bresler, who will convene the commissioners in their breakout room. Larry. You're on mute at this time. You're all set, Larry.
So the people who are controlling this are going to move all the commissioners into the breakout room, and then everybody else is going to stay, and there will be some other activities.
Thank you so much. We are now turning this portion over to our arts and cultural team, which is Yara Taylor and Mary Lutz.
If you see someone who is in need, don't just stand there, hear them plead. Say something to assuage their shame. Say capitalism is to blame. Say open up your weepy eyes. See the penthouse in the skies. Who's living there has put you here. Not God, but landlords kicked your rear. Listen here, I became a thief. Just stole myself from underneath the nasty grip of profit and insatiable greed. Group survival now is our creed. You can hear the childless mothers cry. They've taken our kids, left the mamas to die. No matter the cause, the officials say it's only the poor made to suffer this way. Welfare moms all know this pain, but now we're wise, it's the system to blame. We'll organize with no fear of the man. You'll be surprised that we really can. of profit and insatiable greed. Group survival now is our creed. Lose a job and soon you'll find lots of friends with rent behind. Drinking beer and smoking pot, thinking bad luck has caused their lot. They are wrong, of course you know. You've been good, but you can't show a credit card or cash to pay for food or car fare to get away. Listen here, I became a thief, just stole myself from underneath the nasty grip of profit and insatiable greed. Group survival now is our creed. So join with us and become wise. It's capitalism we despise. Not the poor picking through the trash or begging for food because they need the cash. Corporations rule on thrones. The state and the people their capital owns. So become a thief like me and steal yourself from them and you'll see what's real. Listen here, I became a thief, just stole myself from underneath the nasty grip of profit and insatiable greed. Group survival now is our creed.
Mary and Sierra.
In say the next couple of minutes, if they see a homeless person or they see a family living in the car, a lot of times people just put their blinders on and ignore them, or they see a homeless person asking for money, they just like walk right past them quickly. How can they just kind of make their day a little better, even though it's kind of hard?
Well, I think you really counter that with information. People really need to understand where the situation comes from and how many people it affects and how easily it affects them. That in fact that we have a country that functions on the basis of profit and not on the basis of meeting people's needs. And because of that, people fall through the cracks. Justice and assuring that people have what they need in this country is not a priority. Private enterprise, accruing profit, and ensuring that no matter what, profit remains is what is key in this country. So we have to organize to fight back. When you see a homeless person on the street, one of the things you can do is to get angry at the fact that this country, the wealthiest country in the world, would allow millions of people to live in the brutality of the streets rather than give them a home simply because it can't make a profit off of them if they don't have enough money to pay for it.
And the market is controlled in that way. The housing market is based on a whole supply and demand theory, which all the markets for clothes, cars, whatever, and profit is really made when the demand is high and the supply is low. So you have little food and a lot of people hungry. You have few houses and a lot of people homeless. And that situation in the days and time that we live in now can be easily corrected. We have the means and the know-how to solve those problems.
Well, we have the very
I felt like the lowest thing on earth when I went to the welfare. I felt like they were all better than me, that they could walk all over me, which I got down on my hands and knees to them and begged them for coats and boots for these children at wintertime.
Basic needs.
Some of the people in the original organizing around welfare rights, a lot of us came from the civil rights movement to help get that on the road and what have you.
We're trying to get everybody to stick together. One person just don't have to fight for themselves. All of us fight for each other.
We go into the welfare office if necessary to represent probably one or two of our members, because Welfare Rights is a membership organization. But once we arrive there, it might be the whole waiting room of people that we end up staying all day with to make sure that they get quality services, and we represent all the people there.
Some of our earlier members there, you know, these are war veterans. I mean, women who have been on welfare. These were some of the fighters, the backbone of whatever democracy is, were these women here. Courage, they, you know, rebuke you in the name of the devil, and they very religious, and roll their sleeves up and would punch a policeman before you could blink your eye. You know, you weren't prepared to fight, and they just go. But some of them
were on a kidney machine 3 days a week.
Courage.
Thelma Echols, Beulah Sanders, all of them, but they were always ready. They would come off that kidney machine and be sick.
You know,
and
Johnny
be ready
Tillman,
to go, ready to take over.
Lost both of her legs, Johnny Tillman, and that's when I came in. By the time I came along, the Johnny Tillman model, which is the victims of this fight need to be in the management, need to be in control of what happens. And I was recruited and trained under that model, which is the correct model. Let's move ahead with the victims of this fight, who don't bargain, who don't sell out, who don't get scared. The only thing they do is die before we get to where we're going, but they never give up.
Situation changed. Not only did we were able to expand the services, the situation changed that a lot of the women ended up in the workforce, you know, getting better jobs. They were already in the workforce, you know, getting better jobs. So, you know, an organization like Welfare Rights, which is, people don't tend to think of it, is a part of the labor force, began to have to change too. So back in the 70s, you know, the national office ceased, but we maintained a lot of the local organizations. In 1987, we formed the National Welfare Rights Union. Annie Smart and I, and Arena Edwards, and some more of the old welfare writers have been approached on a national level. Could we have a national organization again? Because of the program that was being pushed out of Washington at the time.
Economics changing.
Situation changed.
Things were changing. We saw it, but didn't know what it was yet.
Okay. So we called a meeting. Michelle Tingling Clemens came in at that time. And we fundraised, and we had the first founding convention at Georgetown University. But we formed the National Welfare Rights Union. And we wanted it to be a union because it could not be just people on public assistance like in the past. It had to be a unified type of thing between the employed, unemployed, organized, unorganized, folks that were facing the type of problems that poor people face, and we had to solidify. We had to make sure that we fought for unity there, and this union was that type of thing that we wanted to form. We designed and began to carry out this campaign. We had a summit in Philadelphia where 500 people made it their way to that summit. We didn't. The only grant we received to help us with this summit was from Reverend Yvonne Dell.
We have got to break the silence and boldly identify poverty as a sin against God. We've got to regain our moral sense of urgency now. Not tomorrow, now. Not next week, now. The demand is up and out of poverty now.
And she gave us $10,000, which we used to help poor people to get to that summit. But basically, a lot of people had to fundraise themselves to get to the summit.
My name is Margaret Willis, and I'm here from Columbus, Ohio.
And I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
Out of Houston, Texas.
St. Paul, Virginia.
I'm from the Lakota Orioles Indian Reservation in Wisconsin.
I'm a lawyer in Philadelphia.
I'm an asbestos victim.
Organizer for the Milwaukee Jobs with Peace campaign.
Clara's House Shelter.
Where I'm currently working with some of the homeless people there.
I'm Mary Devitt, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I'm Anthony Tharp from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
I'm from Columbia, Missouri.
Hi, my name is CJ, and I'm from Detroit, Wayne County Union of the Homeless.
what was so interesting, some of these people had never attended no kind of conference before in their lives, you know, and they were at this summit. We came out of that summit and decided certain campaigns needed to begin to be organized. We wanted everybody up and out of poverty in the United States, in the world, really.
That was the slogan. Up and out of poverty.
We were going to participate in the homeless march, but our demand was going to be that the homeless had to speak for themselves and leave that march.
We're already on our way to Washington.
All right.
We're going October 7th.
You want us to piggyback on that?
Yeah, well listen, that's for everything. That's for wages, that's for housing, that's for food, that's for clothing, that's everything.
We waited for the opportunity for us to speak. We got to realize that they had no intention of letting us speak.
So let's take it in. Let's take it in because we fired up. All right. Let's bring it in. We're fired up. We're taking over. We're fired up. We're fired up. We're fired up.
The women, they don't think about it. All they say is, fuck it, we need housing, we need homes, we need food, and they lead. And I follow.
Homeless speak for themselves.
It seemed like every time somebody spoke for us, we got more and more in the hole.
You know, we've got these affiliate members at states, have welfare rights in New Orleans, welfare rights in California, welfare rights in Arizona, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington. And she's calling folks and we're getting information. Wait a minute, there's a trend going on here. What's happening? People are being laid off all over the place. All of our members across the country are doing food stamps for factory workers, for meal workers, and people are being off work. Then we got all these workfare programs where they want you to work off your grant. And, you know, as it became clearer and clearer, this productivity issue, where now they don't need us to work anymore. So you don't have, what do you need health care for? You can't produce anything for them, so let's remove that. What do you need education for? You can never serve this master anymore. Why should we care if you can read and write? Let's take that away. You don't need housing and clothes. It's all right to stand on a corner with a sign that says, we'll work for food. 20 years ago, you never saw anything like that. And now we have families standing on street corners. The woman and the child, veterans, signed it, baby standing right there, will work for food.
Because we know that today in the richest country in the world, we have no business sleeping in doorways and bus stations. We have no business sleeping in boxes. We have no business standing in a soup line begging for a piece of bread. We have no business waiting for somebody to give us some clothes to put on our back. We have no business taking our small babies and sitting in Burger Kings like I had to do and breastfeed my baby with a quote-unquote bag lady to give me $1 to buy coffee. We don't have to do that today. So what we did was we organized to fight back and to take back what's ours. Because we are the sons and the brothers and the sisters and the aunts and uncles and grandchildren of the people that built this country, and this is ours.
Well, I went down to the rich man's house.
We had to look at the question of poverty and looking at our human rights being violated.
That's right. And link those two.
And link them. So in New Orleans, at a national board meeting, we decided that we were going to start organizing around the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that under that we wanted that implemented in the United States to be the basis for to begin to eliminate poverty. Out of that, Kensington Welfare Rights, which is a part of the national, began to organize around it.
I'm getting a human rights documentation form for one of the women who had cooked today. She was telling us her story. Okay, what's your name?
Nan Johnson.
Okay. Under Article 25, it's the right to well-being of a person and their family. That means food, housing, clothing, medical care, and other social services. Have you ever been denied or cut off welfare?
Yes.
Has your family ever gone without meals because there wasn't enough money for food? Same thing here.
I want my kids to have a better life than I have now.
Thank you, Nan.
You're welcome.
Very much.
And that became the first fight around going to the UN, the march.
Almost there.
thank you so much to the Arts and Cultural team for the compilation of videos. Now the commissioners have reconvened, and I will turn it over to Larry Bresler.
Actually, I'm turning it over to
me.
Yes.
Thanks, Larry. And thank you, everyone. We were having a really rich discussion in the breakout room here. There has been, so many of us have been moved by the testimonies that we've experienced tonight. And we want to definitely thank everyone, again, who testified this evening, and to our incredible tech team with the People's Forum, and also those with the welfare rights, and those of you around the world who have joined us this evening to bear witness to the experiences of families, to the stories that are often seen, unseen, and unheard in a society that consistently blames poor people for being poor and chooses property and profit over the sacredness of life, dignity, and the right to fare well. Truth commissions are a tool that has been used by the National Welfare Rights Union to collectivize and offer testimony from witnesses to economic human rights violations that have been happening to us directly. We put forward our values of a cooperative society, values of love and concern for each other. And when we're coming together not just to hear stories and to bear witness passively, but in a way for us to come together to realize that we are not alone, to realize that it is not our fault, to be able to understand and to see who the real enemy is. And, you know, most importantly, for us to become active, for us to get organized. Truth commissions are a call for action. And after hearing these human rights violations, we can no longer claim ignorance. And we must be moved to action, or our silence will make us responsible as anyone else for these violations. And in order for us to create a society based on common good of its people, we must expose what is happening and put a face to those who are responsible for human rights violations. And then, of course, for us to develop a plan together for stopping these human rights violations and creating other ways for us to live together. Tonight, our task as commissioners was to use the stories that we were able to glean from tonight's testimony and put it against the backdrop of the economic human rights framework, in particular the Article 25 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Article 25, just as a reminder, says that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, all of us, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond our control. It also guarantees that motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protections. And this was a part of the International Convent on the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And as Mary, BJ, and Larry and others have pointed out, the United Nations is one of the few nations that has not actually ratified and signed on to the Declaration of Human Rights. And within this framework, there were many themes that came up for us throughout the many testimonies that we heard, including the issues of housing, the necessity of social services that serve our people, our mothers, our family, the right to education, the right to living wage jobs, of course, the right to our land, to the environment, healthcare, food, all of these, we believe that are issues that in the Article 25 have been violated in regards to the Declaration of Human Rights. And we have been able to come up with, different ideas for solutions, solutions that we could propose, but ultimately we have come to the conclusion that our government has failed us. We live in the wealthiest, maybe, but definitely the most violent nation in the world that does not put people and life at the forefront of its ambitions. And so it is up to us, the people who are the most impacted, for us to be able to come together, not only to tell these stories, but to come together in unity, to struggle across lines of historic division, to find our common cause through the telling of these stories. And understanding that ultimately the only way for us to eradicate poverty is for the poor and dispossessed to fight for our own rights. We have to be organized. We have to unite. People must become aware that we are all connected and we are all being victimized by the same people in the same system, that we are all trying to survive. And it is in that quest for survival that we are inextricably united. I wanted to, I know we're running out of time, but I did want to bring up on the, in the nature of the testimonies, that it wasn't just the stories and the testifiers that we were able to learn from, but the incredible poets like Supreme, Mary Lutz, and the incredible Raging Grannies, a very, very powerful cultural and political force for our people. The videos that the New York State Poor People's Campaign and Peter Kanoy pulled together, the incredible language justice warriors that we have, Kenya and Leonardo, for helping us to connect with one another. And, just pulling from that, I just wanted to lift up the song, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, that the Raging Grannies shared with us while the commissioners were commissioning. And we know this story from, dating back to chattel slavery in the United States. And it was popularized through the performances of the 1870s by the Fifth Jubilee Singers. Paul Robeson popularized the song even further in the 1930s during the Great Depression, and the Civil Rights Movement really brought this song into the international human rights struggles. And although the lyrics of Motherless Child are simple, they have been able to transcend time and space and touch the aches of the heart that we may not have known that we had until we come in contact with its movement. And it is no wonder that the song comes to us again and again in times of crisis. Again, through the movement to end slavery, the crisis of the 1930s, the heights of the battle for civil rights, and now when we are experiencing compounding crises of health, of the economy, of housing, the water crises, all of these crises, that the song reminds us that the struggle is hard, but it is long. And though that sometimes we feel like we are motherless children, it isn't always that way. And that we can always come home to the movement. And when we struggle together, we're able to ensure a future where there will be no motherless children and that everyone has the right to fare well. Thank you.
Miss Sierra, say amen.
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 Amen and amen. And we're really going to get an amen right now as we move into a closing prayer by Commissioner Reverend Tawny Allgood. And then we'll have some closing words. Thank you so much for a powerful evening.
This will be a prayer, a liturgy, and a blessing. Lord, we know that you created the world and you created it to have plenty for everyone. But the religion of empire has taken over. And it's like one of the testifiers said tonight, this system is not set up for us to survive as families or as individuals. Lord, we know that this system cannot itself exist without creating more and more poverty. Lord, not only do they create the conditions for poverty to exist, then they turn around and they criminalize those who are poor. So tonight, it's a blessing for everyone that's here, everyone that's listening, everyone that's out there that's struggling to transform this system. Give us the strength, give us the perseverance, give us the will, the health, and all the things that we need to carry on this fight for justice and transformation. Amen.
Amen. And that concludes the Truth Commission tonight. Thank you all so much. We're fired up, and we will see you in Washington, D.C. at the Poor People's Campaign Massive Assembly. Let's mobilize, because we're fired up and we're not going to take it no more. Good night.
All right, Minister Martin.
That's right.
Night,
Take
y'all.
us home.
Look for me and I'll be there. Look for me. Look for me and I'll be there. Look for me. Look for me and I'll be there. Look for me. Somehow, someday, you're not alone. Well, how could you be? Somehow, someday, we'll find each other.
Until we can get people to recognize that they themselves have to make the struggle and have to make the fight for freedom every day, in the year, every year, until they win it.
We are the National Union of the Homeless, and we're taking HUD houses again.
It takes organization. It takes dedication. It takes a willingness to stand by and do what has to be done when it has to be done.
Can you feel who's clapping on the ground?
You gotta forget about it being against the law. I don't care. I'm dying in the streets. I think that's against the law.
Get down, get down, get down, get down. Music's too loud. Look for me and I'll be there. Look for me. Look for me and I'll be there. Look for me. Look for me. Look for me.
This is another great success.
Look for me.
All the homeless people come together and they show HUD that we can do something.
Again, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening to a powerful, powerful day of human rights. Presente to Ron Casanova, right? And thank you to everyone who put hard work and effort into bringing this tonight. Thank you, Larry, Mary BJ, all of the welfare warriors, to our teacher, Miriam Kramer, and to everybody at the People's Forum. We thank you all. Please tune in and to our Facebook page at National Welfare Rights and the National Union of the Homeless. And thank you so much to the Art and Cultural team, Sierra, Mary Lutz, and the brilliant Peter Kanoy for all of your hard work. And to the most important part of this whole Truth Commission, all of the testifiers who were so powerful today. We need your voices in this movement as we build towards June 18th, 2018, to see you on the ground